The attorney slid the folder across the table, and I noticed his cufflinks, little gavels, gold-plated, the kind of detail that probably seemed clever when he bought them. Patricia sat 3 chairs down, worrying a tissue she hadn't used. She'd worn the navy dress again, the one she called her funeral uniform the day after Dad died, laughing like it was a joke we shared. It hadn't been funny then. The folder was thin. Wills aren't complicated when someone has 43 years of assets to distribute. This one was 3 pages. My name appeared once. Your father made significant changes to his estate plan in October, the attorney said. Gerald Westbrook, according to his nameplate. He wouldn't look at me. First page. Standard executor appointment, asset distribution, legal framework. Second page. My name in a single clause giving me Dad's 1967 Mustang and his Duke Ellington collection. Everything else, the house in Montrose, the cabin in Estes Park, the portfolio from 43 years as a mechanical engineer, went to Patricia Caldwell Morrison, my stepmother of 18 months. He never mentioned this. Patricia's voice came out thin, rehearsed. He wanted to protect me, Diane. You have your career, your own life. I have nothing without him. Probably true. She'd moved into Dad's house 7 months after Mom died with 2 suitcases and a smile that made him forget he'd sworn he'd never marry again. I watched him change, slowly, then all at once, from a man who balanced his checkbook every Sunday to someone who bought her a Mercedes without checking the price. When I asked about it, he said, "Let me enjoy myself. Your mother would want that." Mom would have wanted the truth. The truth was sitting 3 chairs down with dry eyes and a damp tissue, waiting for me to accept defeat. I didn't. Dad met Patricia at a grief support group on Morrison Road. He went twice before mentioning it. I'd been relieved. He needed something after Mom's long decline from ovarian cancer, after morphine measured out her final hours in the hospice bed that dominated their bedroom. Patricia had lost her husband to a heart attack. Sudden, devastating, no time to prepare. Dad liked that she understood. Coffee became dinner, became sleepovers. Within 3 months, her mail came to his address. Her toothbrush lived in his bathroom. Her yoga mat leaned against the wall where Mom's gardening boots used to sit. I met her before the engagement. 52 but younger looking, with careful highlights and the sculpted body that requires expensive classes. She asked thoughtful questions about my civil engineering work, remembered details from Dad's stories, insisted on splitting the dinner check. When she excused herself to the restroom, Dad leaned across the table. I think your mom would have liked her. They married at City Hall on a Wednesday, with 2 witnesses from the parking garage. Dad called that evening, his voice bright with something I hadn't heard since before Mom got sick. I know it seems sudden, but at my age, why wait? Patricia moved in the next day. Within a month, she'd rearranged the furniture, replaced Mom's curtains, convinced Dad to get rid of the coffee table he'd built in 1987. It's about moving forward, she told him. He nodded like this made sense. I stood in the kitchen watching her throw out Mom's recipe box, tomato sauce, stained index cards in Mom's handwriting. The cards made a hollow sound hitting the bottom of the trash bag, like something breaking underwater. That was when I should have known. But grief makes you stupid, and Dad seemed happy. Thanksgiving came 4 months after the wedding. Patricia insisted on hosting, transforming the dining room into something from a magazine. White linens, gold-rimmed chargers, eucalyptus centerpieces. Mom's tradition had been paper napkins and pie straight from the tin. I miss the paper napkins. Dad carved while Patricia coordinated sides. Everything moved smoothly until Uncle Ray mentioned the cabin. You heading to Estes for Christmas? Snow's supposed to be perfect. Dad looked at Patricia. Something passed between them, quick, silent, the kind of communication that takes years to build, not months. We're selling it, he said. The room went quiet except for serving spoons scraping dishes. Uncle Ray set down his wine. Selling it? Frank, you built that deck yourself. You and Karen spent 20 summers there. It's too much to maintain. Patricia's hand found Dad's arm, rested there, squeezed once. And Frank's not getting any younger. All those stairs, the altitude. She looked at Uncle Ray, eyes soft with concern. His doctor said it's not ideal. Dad didn't have a doctor who'd said anything about altitude. Dr. Rashid had cleared him for hiking at elevation last spring. I'd driven him to the appointment. But Dad nodded, squeezed Patricia's hand, passed the cranberry sauce. Later, washing dishes, I asked about the doctor comment. Which appointment was that? Dr. Rashid said you were fine. He dried a plate slowly, not meeting my eyes. Patricia's right to worry. I'm 71, Diane. Maybe it's time to simplify. The cabin isn't complicated. You love that place. I love a lot of things. But people matter more than property. He'd never talked like that before. Those weren't his words. I just didn't know yet whose they were. The cabin sold in January for $300,000, 20% below market. Patricia found a buyer through a friend. No realtor fees, she said. Dad deposited the check into their joint account, the one they'd opened in November. I learned this from my cousin Sarah, who worked at the bank and shouldn't have told me but did over margaritas. He moved everything. His pension, savings, the money market account from the 80s. All of it. Joint ownership with right of survivorship. I drove to Dad's house the next morning. Patricia answered in athleisure wear, hair damp from the gym. Diane. Come in. Frank's at the hardware store. I'll make tea. The kitchen had been remodeled. White subway tile, brass fixtures worth more than my first car. I wanted to talk about Dad's accounts. Sarah mentioned changes. Patricia's smile didn't shift. Your dad wanted to simplify our finances. Easier this way. Everything in both names. Less paperwork. She filled the kettle. Movements precise. Estate planning, you know? Making sure everything transfers smoothly when... She stopped, pressed fingers to her lips. God, I'm sorry. I shouldn't talk about that. You're not on his estate plan. Just the accounts. We're married. In Colorado, that means... I know what it means. The kettle whistled. Patricia turned off the burner, but didn't pour. Diane, I understand this is difficult. A new person in your father's life. Change is happening. But Frank and I love each other. This isn't some soft laugh, sad. I'm not trying to replace your mother. I'm just trying to build a life with my husband. She sounded genuine. Eyes steady, voice warm. If I hadn't known about the cabin, the accounts, the way Dad's opinions had started sounding like echoes, I might have believed her. Dad came home carrying Home Depot bags. His face lit up when he saw me, then clouded reading my expression. Everything okay? Can we talk? Alone? Patricia touched his shoulder. I'll give you privacy. Need to return some calls anyway. She kissed his cheek, disappeared upstairs. In the living room, where Mom's bookshelf used to stand before Patricia said it was too heavy for the wall, I asked about the accounts. He sat in his recliner, the one piece she hadn't replaced, hands folded across his stomach. Patricia suggested it. Tax purposes. What tax purposes? You're not avoiding taxes by putting her name on everything. She has financial experience. Worked in banking for years. She was a teller at Wells Fargo. 3 years. In the 90s. His jaw tightened. How do you know that? I didn't answer. I'd looked her up after Thanksgiving. A basic background check. 15 minutes, $30. The rest of her resume didn't exist. The degree from Colorado State, the credit union management position, the consulting work, none of it real. But I wasn't ready to tell him that yet. I needed more. I'm worried. This doesn't feel like you. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think. He stood. I'd like you to leave. I sat in my car outside his house for 20 minutes. Bedroom light on, then off. My phone buzzed. I know you're concerned, but your dad is happy. Please let him be happy. I deleted it. At home, I pulled up the background check. Patricia and Caldwell, born Pueblo. Married Robert Caldwell 1994, Divorced 2003. Bankruptcy 2008. 3 addresses in 5 years. No property, no assets. Wells Fargo employment ended 1999. After that, nothing verifiable. Just 25 years she'd filled with stories that left no paper trail. I called Lisa, my college roommate turned forensic accountant. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you're calling with something better than another Zillow spiral. I need help looking into someone. Someone or your stepmother? She'd heard the story over drinks last month. I tried to make it sound less paranoid, but she'd listened with the expression she used reviewing financial statements. Focused, skeptical, already looking for gaps. Both. Send me what you have. I forwarded everything. The background check, cabin sale documents from county records, the marriage certificate, the deed showing Patricia added as joint tenant 2 months after the wedding. Lisa was quiet after I explained the account changes. How much total? Ballpark? $2.3 million. Plus the house, another $800,000. Jesus, Diane. I know. You know what this looks like? I did. I'd known since Thanksgiving. Maybe since watching her throw out Mom's recipes. But knowing and proving were different things. Dad wouldn't listen to suspicions. He'd only listen to facts. Can you find her first husband? The one who died of a heart attack. That's what she told Dad. I want to know if it's true. Silence. Then, you understand what you're asking me to look for. I understand. Okay. Give me a week. And Diane? Be careful around her. If this is what we think it is, she's done it before. People like this don't stop at one. I promised to be careful, but careful wasn't what I needed. I needed proof. Lisa called 6 days later. Robert Caldwell is alive in Durango. Owns a hardware store. Remarried 2009. No heart attack. He hung up when I mentioned Patricia's name, but not before saying I should talk to his lawyer. We met at a Cherry Creek coffee shop the next morning. She brought a folder thick enough to require a rubber band. This gets worse. She slid it across the table. Patricia and Caldwell has been married 4 times. Robert was number 2. Number 1 was an annulment, teenage thing, no assets. Number 3 was Dennis Porter, retired Lockheed Martin engineer. Married 14 months. He died 7 weeks after changing his will to name her primary beneficiary. The coffee turned to acid in my throat. How? Fall downstairs in his home. Blood alcohol 0.19. Medical examiner ruled it accidental. Porter had a drinking history. Friends confirmed he'd been hitting it hard after his first wife died of cancer the year before. No investigation. Number 4. James Hartley. Aerospace contractor. Widower, 73. Another 14-month marriage. Died of what looked like a heart attack, but autopsy showed elevated potassium. His daughter challenged the will, but Patricia had documentation showing Hartley supplemented potassium for leg cramps. Doctor confirmed the prescription. Case dismissed. I stared at the folder. She's killed 3 people. 2 confirmed deaths, both ruled natural or accidental. Porter's is suspicious, but unprovable. Here's the pattern: grief groups or senior centers. Moves fast. Isolates them from family. Changes financial documents. They die within 18 months. She inherits everything, disappears for a few years, starts again. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? Because she's smart. Different cities, different names sometimes. Maiden name, married names, whatever fits. Spaces it out so the pattern isn't obvious. Picks men whose deaths look plausible, elderly widowers with health issues, drinking problems, medication routines that explain abnormal findings. My hands shook. Dad doesn't drink. He's healthy. The stairs. Lisa's voice went quiet. Didn't you say she moved his office to the 2nd floor? She had. Last month. Better light for his drafting table, Patricia said. Now he climbed those stairs a dozen times a day. We go to the police. With what? Suspicion? 2 deaths in other states ruled accidental and natural? They'll take a report and do nothing. You need proof she's doing this to your dad. Evidence of intent.
How?
Lisa pushed another folder across the table. You hire someone who knows how to look. The private investigator was Marcus Webb, former Denver police detective. Lisa had used him for insurance fraud cases. If she's planning something, he said at our first meeting, she's already made mistakes. People always do. I just need to find them. He started with Patricia's phone records, financial transactions, daily movements. Within 3 weeks, Marcus had a timeline that made my stomach hurt. Patricia visited 4 pharmacies across 3 counties in 2 months. She'd filled Dad's prescriptions at each one, plus her own, potassium supplements, sleep aids, anxiety medication. None illegal, but the pattern was deliberate. More damning, she'd contacted an estate attorney in October, 2 weeks before Dad changed his will. Marcus had the consultation record. She'd asked specifically about spousal inheritance rights, contesting provisions favoring adult children, probate timelines. The attorney advised her the cleanest solution was having Dad revise the will entirely. Dad changed it 8 days later. I called him Tuesday afternoon. Patricia answered his phone.
He's resting. Can I have him call you back?
I need to talk to him now. Diane, he's not feeling well. Dizzy spells, and the doctor said. What doctor? Dr. Rashid?
Pause.
A new doctor. Geriatric specialist. Your father needs more attention, then. Put him on the phone. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate you answering his phone.
Put
him on. Muffled voices. Door closing. Then Dad's voice, rough and tired. Diane, what's going on? I'm filing a petition to determine your capacity. I'm challenging the will. I'm requesting a guardianship evaluation.
Silence.
Patricia's voice in the background, sharp. She's doing what? I'm protecting you, whether you want me to or not. You have no right. I'll see you in court, Dad. I hung up before he could respond. The petition triggered automatic review. Within 48 hours, a court investigator contacted Dad to schedule an interview. Patricia tried blocking it. Stress would worsen his condition, she claimed, but the court didn't care about stress. They cared about capacity. The interview happened Thursday afternoon. I wasn't allowed to attend, but Marcus sat across the street and photographed Patricia leaving with 2 suitcases 20 minutes before the investigator arrived. She returned an hour later, after it concluded. The investigator's preliminary report noted Frank Morrison appeared alert, oriented, capable of managing his affairs, but expressed concern about financial decisions inconsistent with his documented investment strategy. The report recommended full cognitive assessment. Marcus kept digging. He found Patricia's storage unit in Aurora, rented under her maiden name. 3 weeks and a warrant based on suspected financial exploitation later, police opened it. Boxes of documents. Estate plans from Dennis Porter and James Hartley, both naming Patricia primary beneficiary. Life insurance policies. Death certificates. And a notebook. Spiral-bound, college-ruled. Handwritten timelines for each marriage. Porter's section included medication schedules, drinking pattern notes, a crude floor plan of his house with his staircase marked in red. Hartley's section detailed his potassium prescription, dosage amounts, symptoms of hyperkalemia. Dad's section had 6 pages. The first entry was dated 4 months before Mom died. Marcus photographed every page before police cataloged it. He brought me copies Sunday morning, spreading them across my kitchen table like a crime scene. She was planning this before your mother passed. Look at the dates. Patricia had attended Dad's grief support group for 2 months before they met. Sat 3 rows behind him. Never introduced herself. Just watched and waited. The notebook included details she couldn't have known without following him: his grocery store, his barber, his favorite waitress's name at the diner. She'd researched his finances, property records, tax assessments, estimated net worth from public data. The final entry, dated October 19th, 3 days before Dad changed his will. Stairs too risky. Neighbors too close. Too many variables. Medication easier to control. Potassium with magnesium supplement. Gradual increase. Cardiac event more believable given age. Timeline: 4 to 6 months from final documents. 4 to 6 months from October meant February to April. It was late February. Beneath the notebooks, Marcus found a small wooden box. Inside, Mom's wedding ring. The one Dad said he'd buried with her. Patricia had removed it before cremation. She'd had it appraised. The jeweler's estimate was tucked inside, $8,400. I called the detective handling the case. You need to get my father away from her. Today. We're working on an arrest warrant, Ms. Morrison, but you have a notebook describing how she plans to kill him. What else do you need? Evidence linking her to previous deaths. Pattern isn't proof without. Then get the proof. But get him out of that house first. The detective moved when Marcus found the insurance policies. Patricia had taken out life insurance on Dad in November, $500,000, approved after a medical exam showing excellent health. She'd forged his signature on the application. The insurance company confirmed it after comparing signatures to Dad's DMV records. Wrong loops, inconsistent pressure points. Patricia had practiced on the notebook's back pages, rows of Frank Morrison signatures getting progressively closer to accurate. The DA filed charges Wednesday: attempted murder, forgery, theft, exploitation of an at-risk adult. 2 murder counts were added after investigators in Durango and Colorado Springs reopened Porter's and Hartley's cases. New autopsies weren't possible, both men cremated, but the notebooks provided enough premeditation evidence to build cases. Colorado Springs DA said they'd found Patricia's fingerprints in Hartley's house, places she'd claimed she'd never been: the garage where he kept supplements, the bathroom cabinet with his medications. They arrested her at the gym. Dad was at a court-mandated medical evaluation, accompanied by a victim advocate who explained what was happening and why. He didn't believe it. She told me later he'd called her a liar, demanded to go home, threatened complaints. Then she showed him the notebook photographs, the timeline entries, the signatures, the sections about Dennis Porter and James Hartley. He stopped talking, just sat in the examination room staring at copies of Patricia's handwriting, reading plans for his death in her careful script. The doctor asked if he wanted to pause, take a break, call someone. Dad said no. He finished the assessment, scored perfectly on every cognitive test, asked to speak with the detective. What he told them filled 16 pages of transcription. Every conversation Patricia steered toward finances. Every suggestion about his health, medication, daily routines. The new supplements she'd bought in January, magnesium and potassium for energy. He'd been taking them every morning for 6 weeks. The detective asked how he felt. Dad said tired. Very tired. More tired than he'd ever been. They admitted him to the hospital that night. The courtroom smelled like floor polish and recycled air. I sat behind the prosecution table watching Patricia enter in orange jumpsuit and chains. She'd lost weight in 3 weeks. Gray showed at her roots.
She didn't look at me.
Didn't look at anyone except her public defender, a tired woman named Rashida Chun who'd drawn the impossible task of defending documented premeditation. The preliminary hearing took 4 hours. Prosecution presented the notebooks first, each page projected 10 feet tall. Judge Margaret Kimball read every entry in silence, her expression hardening with each page. When she reached Dad's section, she removed her glasses and looked directly at Patricia. "Counselor, does your client wish to make a statement?" Chun whispered to Patricia. Patricia shook her head. "Very well. Continue, Mr. Brennan." The prosecutor walked through evidence like building a wall brick by brick. The forged insurance application. Pharmacy records showing prescriptions across multiple counties. Storage unit contents. Timelines matching Patricia's marriages to Porter and Hartley. correlation between their deaths and notebook entries. He called the Colorado Springs medical examiner, who testified Hartley's potassium levels at death were consistent with supplementation beyond prescribed amounts. He called the Durango detective, who testified Porter's fall occurred in a stairwell friends said he never used. He always took the elevator. The stairs led to basement storage. Patricia had keys to that area. She'd found his body. Then Brennan called Dad. He walked to the witness stand slowly, gripping the rail. He'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. The hospital had flushed excess potassium from his system, but emotional damage went deeper than blood work could measure.
He was sworn in.
Sat down. His eyes found Patricia across the courtroom. Mr. Morrison, Brennan said gently, when did you first meet the defendant? Grief support group. March last year. My wife had just died. The defendant approached you?
No.
I approached her. She was crying during the session. I offered her a tissue. Brennan walked him through it.
Coffee dates.
Engagement. Wedding. Financial changes. Patricia suggesting selling the cabin, combining accounts, updating the will. Did these feel like your decisions? Long silence. At the time, yes. Now I don't know. She had a way of making suggestions sound like they came from me. Like I'd thought of them first. Did you feel pressured?
No.
I felt loved. I felt like someone saw me as more than a widower. That's why his voice broke. He pressed fingers to his eyes. That's why I didn't listen to my daughter. She tried to tell me. I thought she was jealous. Brennan let the silence hold. Then, Mr. Morrison, you've seen the notebook entries concerning you. Do you understand what they describe? Yes. Do you believe the defendant intended to carry out those plans? Dad looked at Patricia again. She was crying, shoulders shaking, her public defender's hand on her arm. But her eyes were dry. I could see from where I sat.
Completely dry.
Yes, Dad said. His voice had the flat quality of someone reading a grocery list, each word the same weight as the last. I believe she would have killed me. The judge denied bail. Patricia stood when the ruling came down, mouth opening like she wanted to protest. No sound came out. The bailiff led her away. She looked back once, scanning the gallery. Her eyes found mine. For 1 second, the mask dropped. I saw what she really was, cold, calculating, furious at being caught. Her reflection in the courtroom's glass partition showed something different than her performance. Face composed.
Blank.
The tears were real. She'd learned to cry on command. But behind them, nothing moved. Then she was gone, and Dad was standing at the witness box, staring at the empty defense table.
Let's go home, I said.
He nodded. But we both knew he couldn't go home. Not to that house. Not anymore. The trial took 7 months. Patricia pleaded not guilty despite the notebooks, the insurance fraud, the pattern spanning 2 decades. Her defense argued the notebooks were fiction, creative writing exercises, fantasies never intended for action. The prosecution dismantled that claim in 3 days, presenting evidence that every detail had been acted upon. Pharmacy visits, forged signatures, the insurance policy, the storage unit filled with documents from dead husbands. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. 2 counts first-degree murder for Porter and Hartley, attempted murder for Dad, forgery, theft, exploitation of an at-risk adult. Judge sentenced her to life without parole, sentences running consecutively. Patricia showed no emotion when the verdict was read. She'd stopped performing by then. The civil case moved faster. Dad filed to void the will changes, citing undue influence and fraud. Patricia's public defender didn't contest it. She had bigger problems. The court reversed every financial change: joint accounts, property transfers, beneficiary designations. The cabin sale was harder to unwind. The buyers had acted in good faith, but Dad negotiated repurchase at original price plus 20%. They agreed, apologetic and horrified when they learned the context. The insurance company voided the policy, flagged Patricia in a national database. She'd never collected death benefit again. Criminal restitution required her to repay money stolen from Porter's and Hartley's estates, nearly $900,000 total. She had $17,000 in assets. The rest would follow her as unpayable debt, even in prison. But the worst discovery came during civil proceedings, when Dad's attorney subpoenaed Patricia's phone records from before Mom died. The records showed calls to Dad starting 5 months before Mom's death. Brief, 1-minute voicemails. Wrong numbers, friendly messages, anything to get her voice into Dad's routine before they randomly met at the grief group. She'd researched Mom's oncologist. She'd known the prognosis, the timeline, the likely date of death within a 6-week window. She'd positioned herself perfectly. Same grief group, seat where Dad would see her, crying on cue. Dad read the phone records in the attorney's office. I was there when he finished. He set the papers down carefully. The papers smelled like toner and dust. His fingerprints left marks in the margins where he'd gripped too hard. She was hunting me before Karen even died. The attorney nodded. I'm sorry, Frank. Dad walked out. I found him in his car in the parking garage, forehead pressed against the steering wheel. I got in the passenger seat. Waited. Finally. I let her erase your mother. The curtains, the furniture, the recipe box. I let her throw it all away because I thought moving forward meant forgetting. You were grieving. She exploited that. Your mother told me to be careful. His voice cracked. 2 days before she died. Barely conscious, but she grabbed my hand and said, Don't be stupid about women, Frank. You're terrible at spotting liars. I laughed. Thought she was joking about how I never knew when she was planning surprise parties. But she knew. Somehow she knew I'd be vulnerable. He started crying then. Not quiet courtroom tears, but deep, shaking sobs from a place beyond shame. I held his hand while he broke in the parking garage under fluorescent lights and understood Patricia had stolen more than money. She'd stolen his last year with Mom, his trust in his own judgment, his faith that love could be simple and true. Some thefts can't be calculated in dollars. Dad sold the Montrose house 6 months after the trial. Couldn't bear living in rooms Patricia had redesigned, climbing stairs she'd planned to use for murder. He bought a ranch-style place in Littleton, smaller, simpler, with a garage for the Mustang and a sunroom for his drafting table. I helped him move. We found things Patricia had hidden in closet backs, Mom's recipe box, photo albums from their 40th anniversary trip, the coffee table he'd built in 1987. Patricia had kept them, probably planning to discard them later. Dad cried when he saw the recipe box. Then spent an afternoon organizing the cards by season. The cabin in Estes Park became our project. We drove up every other weekend that first year, repairing the deck Patricia called too dangerous, replacing windows she'd claimed were drafty. Dad taught me things he'd been meaning to show me for years. How to plane wood, read a level, check a foundation for settling. We didn't talk about Patricia much.
Didn't need to.
The work was enough. He started attending a different grief group, one Patricia had never touched, to process what happened. He made friends there, people who understood betrayal in its forms. One of them, a widow named Helen, asked him to coffee.
He said no. Gently.
Said he wasn't ready and might never be. She understood. I watched him navigate her kindness over the following months. She'd smile when he arrived at meetings. Save him a seat. Bring him coffee the way he liked it. Once, she touched his arm while they talked, and I saw him freeze, just for a second, before politely stepping back. The fear in his eyes was still fresh, still raw. He stopped going to that group 2 months later. Started a different one across town. Didn't explain why, but I knew. On Sundays, we meet for breakfast at the diner near his new house. Same booth, same waitress, Dorothy, who remembers his coffee order and doesn't ask why he looks sad sometimes. We talk about work, cabin projects, Mom. He keeps her recipe box in the kitchen now, uses it when he cooks. The tomato sauce card is still stained, still in her handwriting. I asked him once if he'd ever forgive himself for not seeing Patricia's con. He thought about it for a long time, scraping butter across his toast. I loved your mother for 43 years. I thought I knew what love looked like. Turns out I only knew what real love looked like. Had no reference for the fake version. That's not a weakness. Maybe not. But it cost me a year of my life. Nearly cost me everything. He still has nightmares. Wakes up thinking he's falling, or can't breathe, or that his heart is stopping. The doctor said that's normal for someone who came so close. Normal. Patricia will die in prison, her name a footnote in training seminars about elder fraud. Dad will live another 10 years, maybe 20. He'll spend them at the cabin, at Dorothy's diner, at the workbench in his garage. Mom's recipe box will stay on his kitchen counter, tomato-stained and permanent. And somewhere between the woman who loved him and the woman who tried to kill him, he'll decide whether the risk of being fooled again is worse than dying alone. He hasn't decided yet. Neither have I. Thanks for listening.